The mayor has sent her regrets. As you well know, she's on a trade mission to Brazil. And we had expected several council members, and I don't know if they've arrived at the moment. Mike Sullivan, Steve Costello, and Melissa Noriega were hoping to be here. And I've learned to ask to make sure I don't miss somebody. I did that with Ellen Cohen one day, and I've never lived it down. Who are we? Blueprint Houston. Our mission is to assure the creation of a general plan for the city of Houston based on citizens, visions, values, and goals. Not to develop a plan, but to strongly encourage the city to design and adopt that framework. Think of it as a strategic plan, think of it as a business plan, however you want to wrap your mind around it, for positive growth for this city. So what are we doing as Blueprint Houston? Our initiatives supporting that goal this year are operating on several scales. We serve on the coordinating committee along with 26 other nonprofits, city, and county governments for the Sustainable Communities Regional Planning process. And you've probably heard of it as the Regional Plan for Sustainable Development, which HGAC is our coordinating entity. That effort will result in a couple of years in ideas and strategies for sustainable development within a framework that will foster some opportunities for coordination of infrastructure, environmental protection, and housing investments and expenditures over our 13-county region. It's a wide open process that encourages, wants, is almost begging for citizen engagement. You can participate if you want to. Go online to www.ideas.ourregion.org. And particularly, you can put in input on that process through their Mind Mixer feature. It's really interesting. They have about 200 people that are doing that currently. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. We're also researching ways in which planning is already occurring in Houston through organizations like municipal management districts. And should you not be aware, there are 19 extremely active ones in this city right now. We're also working with geography teachers at Milby High School. We're setting up a pilot program to develop resources that will bring home to the concepts in their textbooks to ninth graders so that in Houston and in the East End, so that they understand how the city impacts and place impacts their lives. So what about the citizens' visions, values, and goals? Blueprint Houston worked with citizens from all over the city to document their desires. We've done that for several years. If you haven't seen them, they're posted on our website at www.blueprinthouston.org. One of those big topics was transportation. How do we get around 600 plus square miles of this place that we call home? And that becomes extremely important as we age, because how do you move easily around a city of 600 square miles? Our honoree tonight has spent most of his adult life dealing with those questions: mobility and transportation. Now that he's left Metro, he's now working on a whole different concept: high-speed rail in Texas with the Texas Transportation Institute. What's clear to all of us is the power of transportation. I keep reminding myself, too, that it's not just transportation, but it's mobility systems and how they shape the city. Our panelists tonight certainly know that, and collectively have roughly a century of experience with John in how to fashion the best outcomes to those problems. The panelists, I'm going to introduce them very quickly here. George Grenius, as you know, is the current president and CEO of Metro. Bob Urey, president of Central Houston Inc., and has worked with John on the monumental first leg of Houston's light rail system, as well as other transit options that have been developed by Metro. Dr. Carol Lewis, our transportation guru from Texas Southern University, where she's the director of the Center for Transportation Training and Research and the former chair of the Planning Commission of the city. Ray Del Reytho, an architect and urban designer, an award-winning designer, to boot, of some of Metro's rail stops. Next time you're in the Med Center, take a look. Those are some of the products of that effort. Don Glenn is an engineer who works on those ever-present, ever-important horizontal aspects of how do you make all of this work and fit. Those aspects of transportation, planning, and implementation. Now, coordinating all of that conversation tonight is going to be Dr. Stephen Kleinberg, the director of the Kinder Institute at Rice University, and probably known to most of us as that, shall we say, unique curiosity behind the Houston area survey. He probably knows more about us and what we think, and what we think, and want to think about transportation systems and life in Houston. So tonight, as we honor John, let's just eavesdrop on that conversation they're going to have. Please welcome our panelists and Stephen Kleinberg.
Well, it's a great honor for me to be the moderator of this distinguished panel of people who have known John Sedlak and worked closely with him for many, many years. John has been at the center of what I see honestly as a city in the process of reinventing itself. One of my favorite questions we've asked in our surveys, we asked back in 2010, that said of a random sample of Harris County residents in the most automobile-dependent, far-flung, least dense major city in America, we said if you could live in any kind of housing that you wanted in Houston, what would you prefer? And 57% said, I want to live in a single-family home with a big yard, even if I have to drive most of the places I need to go, thank you very much. But 41% of all Harris County adults, 41% of the 2.5 million adults in Harris County said, I would personally prefer to live in a more urbanized home within walking distance of shops and workplaces. And you're trying to think, what percentage of Houstonians have that option? Not very many. And that's what much of this is about, and much of John's work through all these years has been focused on. And I can't tell you the truth about their new survey. I just got the data, but the story is even more and higher numbers than ever before, saying, I want to live in a more urbanized home within walking distance of shops and workplaces. This is a city, as I say, in the process of reinventing itself. And we're here today to honor and to reminisce and to think about the future of what kind of a city can we build together in the 21st century. So we want to start with, all of you people have wonderful examples and experiences of various sorts. Carol, why don't we start with you? And you worked with John very closely for quite a while.
Indeed. I first met John back in the early 1980s. And to just create the picture, we had just not been successful with a rail proposal we had taken to Washington, D.C., and many of us had stayed up all night, worked weekend after weekend, and turned in this rail proposal and not had it to actually work. So that administration changed, and in comes Alan Keeper. And when we met Alan Keeper, as you may recall, is very tall, probably about 6'3" or 6'4", and he kept talking about this young man named John Sedlak that he was bringing from Atlanta. And we heard so much about John Sedlak that, I don't know if you know this, but we started calling him Keeper's Boy Wonder. So Keeper was bringing this boy wonder from Atlanta, and the thing that we know that Stephen has talked about that is all John has done in Houston, but he had done a lot in Atlanta before he got here, and that's why Alan Keeper wanted him to come with him when he arrived in Houston. So I think John was very instrumental in the 5-point stations in Atlanta, and for those of you who know Atlanta, it's the station where the two train lines cross, so it's huge, it's got a very deep access area, and there's a lot to it. And when we finally met John, when he finally came to Houston, you know, you have this little intimidation because is this man who keepers bringing going to be someone that we're going to need to be intimidated by? And in fact, John came, and one of the first things we thought is, oh, he's nice. And guess what? He's not bad looking. So the other thing that went with that is that he's tall like Keeper, so no wonder Keeper likes him, right? He found someone he can look eye to eye with. And so John did come to Houston, and we had the opportunity to work with him. He was, in fact, all that Alan Keeper had expressed. We were very happy that he was here. He had all the knowledge and all the finesse and everything that we needed to take us forward back in the early 1980s. Some of you may recall that at that point, we tried to have a referendum that was unsuccessful, and we quickly regrouped and became the HOV agency. And John was at the beginning and you know, helping to take the agency in that other direction. So the word that I would add is adaptable. You know, as things changed, he was able to change with the environment that we were in. So at the time, when John first came, we had different sections at Metro, and he was in construction and I was in planning. And again, early 80s. Fast forward to the 90s, and organization changed, and I ended up reporting to John. So John was my boss for a number of years, and he was a great boss. You know, I teach management and organization in some of my classes, and I teach all these different management styles. And John's management style is very easygoing. You know, he's an open door. You can talk to him. He's going to, you know, be analytical, think through problems. He's not going to be emotional or reactive. And so that's very important when you're at Metro in the 90s. And so, you know, that kind of takes us through the second sort of era. And I used to go in his office, and he had this corner office that I absolutely loved. I said it actually defined who we were. We were in the 500, no, that wasn't the one. We were at the building on Milam and someplace. And
1201 Louisiana.
1201 Louisiana, great. And that office that he had was this corner that looked down on Louisiana. So in the evening, you could go sit in that office and you could see the buses lined up from the window. And it just really defined our being. And I used to love to go in that room and talk to him at the end of the day. You know, the sun was going down, it was dusky, and you could just see this line of buses. And it was so defining. We would have so many great talks about what had gone on through the day. And it was often funny. And so it was really just a good time. In 1992, I left Metro, fast forward, and in the early 2000s, I had the opportunity to be appointed to the Metro Board of Directors, so I spent 2 years there. And so then I got to see John from another perspective. And the thing I will tell you all is that Shirley DeLibero put so much faith and trust in John. I mean, we would go into a meeting and literally, she wouldn't say a word. John would do all the presenting. And it was a very telling time for me, just, you know, in a person who teaches management styles, to talk about a management style of a kind of leader who doesn't mind letting the individuals who work in the organization shine and let their skills and everything just rise to the top. And so that was the time that we really saw John at his, you know, at almost his peak, you know, because he was doing so much. So that was a great time as well. And we got to clip opening ribbons and unveil buses and just have balloons and just really great times. So to end my comments, when I heard John was retiring, of course I asked myself, does that mean I should be thinking about retiring too?
One of the things that was remarked upon when I became